Hello and welcome. This is A Chat to the Professional, the show that has been designed to x-ray the activities of professional individuals and corporate bodies. My name is Martin Tobu, and as usual, always glad to be with you. Today, once again, we are reaching you from Washington, D.C., a place we call our second home when in Washington, and that's the World Bank Group. We are having today one of Nigeria's brightest, who is at the Directorate of Operations, Policy and Quality as the head. Of course, he's done so many things, from lecturing in the UK to also working at the African Development Bank. He has gone around so many continents, so many countries, and as far as I'm concerned, he is a wealth of experience. But I'm going to get into the proper introduction by the time we return from this break. Don't go anywhere, we will be back.
Professional handshake. Professional profile.
Nigeria is the most important country in sub-Saharan Africa.
In-depth analysis of professional issues.
Of education, the collapse of culture in Nigeria. Even with cheating, we can't pass.
Yeah.
With the enormity of the cheating.
We've not done enough. There's still more to be done.
Join Martin Zobu every week on this channel as he chats with the professionals on the program. A Chat with the Professionals. A program designed to x-ray the activities of professional individuals and corporate bodies.
Hello viewers, and you're welcome.
Join us.
You are still watching A Chat to the Professional, and like I mentioned to you in my opening, today we have another Nigerian professional working at the World Bank. Of course, one of the great minds that Nigeria boasts of at the World Bank. It's no longer news that we've really made our marks at the World Bank. What is left to be seen is, like, we had an attempt of Professor Kunjo-Iweala, gunning for the topmost position, and we are hopeful that that avenue has now been thrown open, and perhaps my guest today might just be the person we're looking for. And so it's my pleasure to introduce this man that I essentially am going to allow to reel out his resume, his history, his background up the ladder, because I'd like the younger ones who are in Nigeria going to school to draw some inspiration from him, because he actually did his basic training in Nigeria. But join me now as I welcome to the show today the Director, Operations, Policy and Quality at the World Bank Group, Aloysius Ordu. My pleasure to have you.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you, Martins, and good to meet you, brothers and sisters.
Now, I try to skip a proper introduction of you because I'll prefer you to do that.
Okay.
Who is Aloysius Ordu?
Well, what you see is what you get. I'm pretty much as Nigerian as you can get.
Okay.
After being away for over 30 years, it doesn't change anything.
That's good.
I was born in a very, very tiny village. Tiny village we proudly call Akbabo.
Okay.
Just near
That's
Elele,
in Rivers State.
in the River State of Nigeria,
Okay.
just outside Port Harcourt. And that's where I was born, and by peasant farmers. Peasant farmers. Went to school, went to boarding school in Ekwereche, which is one of the, in those days in the 70s, one of the boarding schools in just in River State.
Yes.
After that, basically, I went to England. Ostensibly to do my A-levels and bachelors, but of course you know how it is. And by the time it was all said and done, I completed my PhD there and then started working in England.
Okay.
I taught briefly at the University of Sussex, and then joined the Economist newspapers, and then moved to the City of London, where I worked in the Midland Bank.
Okay. That's good. Now, if you were still back in Nigeria by now, you should be a high chief. You know, unfortunately, you know, we seem to have lost a lot of values over time, because these days, as we speak, what matters the most is your title, your pocket, not about the integrity. And that's why I needed you to do that introduction, so that particularly the young ones out there will know that there's nothing like having a credibility, you know, that precedes you, rather than, okay, you have a fleet of cars, perhaps more than 5 wives, and you live in a palace, and nobody cares how the money is made. So I'm going to ask you, over 30 years outside the shores of Nigeria, when you go back home, what do you see? Comparing that with what it was when you left.
Well, I think it's, going back to your remarks, I think one thing we learn about central banking, for example, if I go to your question, is credibility.
Okay.
When a central bank is credible, then the control over monetary policy is assured. The same with individuals, in a way, because what you have really is your credibility. And it really doesn't matter whether you're living at home or not living at home. As true Nigerians, we are defined by many things. Nigerians have done this, Nigerians have done that. I think it is important to remember that you, the face you see in the mirror, you have the opportunity to define yourself, because others will. And so that's why credibility comes in. And going back to your question, sure, there are tremendous, remarkable changes. Remarkable changes at all. As with most things in life, many of the changes are actually for the greater good. Really for the greater good. I happen to have been fortunate if you like, to have essentially traveled to all world regions and lived in many of them. Lived in England, lived in the United States now for over 20 years. I've lived in Asia. I was manager for the Philippines of the World Bank in Asia for 5 years. I've just come back from Tunis, where I was for another 5 years as vice president at the African Development Bank. So I think when you go home, the danger is to compare home with all these places. It's very easy to do, and then. But when you think of when I left home, telephone, for example, was something of ultimate luxury, only a few could afford. Right now, I can call my relatives in my village now on the cell phone. That's progress. That's just an example of progress. And what does that mean for a fisherman? We do a lot of fishing in the United States. For a farmer who's able to use his cell phone or her cell phone to get market prices where prices are better, etc. So there are some really remarkable progress. Well, infrastructure in so many ways, we've made progress. Is that enough? Absolutely not. We could do more. We could do much more. Roads, bridges, electricity, water. But again, when you look at the state of governance, in our country, there are some states that are particularly done well in terms of leadership, governance. Clearly, charity begins at home. In my state, Rivers, for example, the governor, Amechi, is doing a fantastic job. Because his focus on infrastructure is, make no mistakes, I was there recently, and it's quite clear that that's the right focus. We know that in Cross River State, Governor Duke did some really phenomenal things. Lagos State is doing exceptionally well. I mean, it doesn't mean that the other states I didn't mention are not doing well. There are clearly places where we have done well, in spite of what you articulated. Now, there are also areas where we could have done better, clearly, relative to the resources we've had, because it's a very rich country. The budget of some states in Nigeria are bigger than some African countries.
You're right.
So in that sense, there are many things we could have done better, but this is the life we live in. It's a journey, and you have to take each step at a time, learn from the past as you move forward, change your game plan, adapt to changing circumstances. And for the young ones, this is very important. Even when you hit a roadblock, that's not the end of the world. You need to bounce back.
I'm so much excited about what you just said, because Nigerians, unfortunately, not all of them, but a greater percentage of Nigerians are very good at bad-mouthing themselves. Now, but for someone like you who has traveled around, I'm glad it's coming from you to let viewers out there know that Nigeria indeed is a great country, and in spite of all we've said, all the bad things that have happened in the past, I'm one of those who believe that Nigeria is on the right track to greatness. So long as we get leadership right.
Absolutely.
Now, taking it from there, if you saw what happened in 2011 with the elections, now compare that with what we had in the past. In your own opinion, what we had in 2011, does it match the expectations of Nigerians? And going forward, what would you like to see?
Let me warn you, in the interest of public disclosure, I work for the World Bank. I'm writing policies as director of policy. I'll try not to comment on political issues, but do I have an opinion? Of course. And the best way to answer your question is to look at history. I'm a very passionate student of history. Something happened in 1947. One huge country in Asia was going to be independent, India. And on the eve of independence, it was split. And the Pakistanis insisted on going a separate way. Right? And so you saw India, Gandhi, Nehru, they continued to practice democracy. Stop, start, stop, start. And the other country, the opposite was true. This is 2012. It's night and day. So it applies to countries, it applies to humans, all of us. You have to recognize that it takes Malcolm Gladwell, the author of The Outliers, which I would really recommend for any young child, any young person watching out there. It's a very simple book, very small, very readable, fantastic book. He wrote Blink, etc. But in The Outliers, the central thesis in the book is simply practice, practice, practice. It takes 10,000 hours, right, to perfect something, your trade. That's what he says. So when people say the Beatles are geniuses, they forget that they had practiced and practiced and practiced. Bill Gates, before he became who he was, he had practiced computing. And so the same applies to all of us, and the same applies to countries. And so it's not so much 2011 election versus previous elections. The issue is whether we have gotten to a state of maturity that we will remember that the road yeah, or the road or the race to the ultimate governance, right? The quality of good governance has no finish line. You can always do better. Okay, and so to embark on that requires that you consistently continue to practice. You know, since independence in 1960, if Nigeria had taken a different turn and we continued democracy, by now the level of maturity would be absolutely a different ballgame. Remember, this is a very important country. 165 million people. One of the top 11 countries in the world. And in terms of size and scope, we're bigger than any other African country in terms of population, certainly in terms of population. And in terms of resources, we're well endowed. But maybe one area where challenge has been what you mentioned, the leadership. And if you can imagine good leadership superimposed in all that, the country will just, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that Nigeria will go places. Because when all these stars are aligned in the firmament, it will take off big time. In fact, in so many ways it has.
I agree with you, but at this point we must take a break. It's so refreshing here at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. Having a chat with one of the great minds, you know, Nigeria can boast of, representing us very well here in Washington, D.C. Aloysius Ordu, the Director in charge of Operations, Policy and Quality at the World Bank Group. But we must take a break, like I said. Don't go anywhere. We will be back.
Professional handshake. Professional profile.
Nigeria is the most important country in sub-Saharan Africa.
In-depth analysis of professional issues.
Of education, the collapse of culture in Nigeria. Even with cheating, we can't pass. With the enormity of the cheating.
We've not done enough. There's still more to be done.
Join Martins Obu every week on this channel as he chats with the professionals on the program. A chat with the professionals. A program designed to x-ray the activities of professional individuals and corporate bodies.
Hello viewers, and you're welcome.
Join us.
You're welcome back. You're still watching A Chat with the Professional, and my guest here remains one of the great minds Nigerians have in World Bank. He is the Director in charge of Operations, Policy and Quality, a man that started his career in Nigeria, and as we speak, he remains a true Nigerian. If you listen to him, his accent, everything about him is still Nigerian. Doing over 30 years outside the shores of Nigeria, but still Nigerian in all aspects. Aloysius Ordu. Never mind, for professionals, they care less about titles. He is a doctor, he holds PhD, but you heard me call him Aloysius. And for those of you who are back home who are so egocentric, you might be saying, what is this young man doing? You are calling him by his name as though he's your mate. We're used to that, but the truth of the matter is that what we are encouraging here is that we must do the right thing so that we can move our country forward. If you listened to him before we went on break, he just told you that Nigeria has all it takes to be a world leader. The greatest in Africa, we all know, with our size, with our resources, with our intellect. Of course, go everywhere in all parts of the world, you'll find Nigerians doing exceptionally well. And that's why at the World Bank, we have so very many of them at topmost positions. We just hope that, like I said from the beginning, that soon we have a World Bank president of Nigerian extraction. That's a story for another day. Now, looking at what has happened over the years, yes, we're on the right track in terms of policy. Implementation has always been the challenge. I know that also way back our education system was ranked amongst the best. It took a nosedive. Now it's been revamped. In all of this, what would be your advice to the young ones out there, you know, who seek to be like
Well, I'm not so sure I've necessarily gotten it right myself. I have 3 children. I have a son and 2 daughters.
Okay.
And my advice to the young ones out there is really, really consistent with the advice I have given my children in all the years as their father. First of all, at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, clearly what drives me is family. You got to be absolutely committed, dedicated to your family. That's very important. Because at the end of the day, that's what defines you.
Yeah.
And the second is clearly persistence. Persistence. I don't think there are magic wands there. Okay. If you're persistent, patient, and as I mentioned in the Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell's book, you need to really practice. In Nigeria, we're known for our adages. You see these interstate buses and it says no condition is permanent, or something like that. You can be a rich man tomorrow, before tomorrow you become poor. There's a lot of grains of truth in that. But what is clear is that to move ahead, the young ones of today, you have a lot of opportunities that many of us didn't have. You also have tremendous challenges. The classic opportunities is globalization, access to technology, more modern and superior infrastructure. Many of us in the old days didn't have all that. But having said that, there are also challenges of navigating today's world. In the early days, many of us were lucky to study hard and get scholarships. A couple of things are very important. Hard work. Hard work pays in spite of what we might observe around us to the contrary. It pays to work hard. Second, never ever forget to dream. It is the beginning of it all. You got to dream and articulate a game.
How to actualize the dream?
Well, it takes tenacity, it takes hard work, it takes perseverance, it takes practice, as we said. And there is also an element of luck. And for the young ones out there, the idea that you have somebody like a mentor is very important. Somebody who's not there to judge you, somebody who's there to listen, proffer advice, maybe of the 3 things you articulated, take this one, go this way, go that way. Those things are very, very important. And of course, define yourself. Define yourself. What is quite clear is if you don't, somebody else will define you. And it may not be what you necessarily want. You got to define yourself.
Thank you. You just talked about mentoring because I was going to talk about it. Do we still have that? In those days, you are growing up and then you have someone you're looking up to, and you aspire to be like this person. That was why I asked you to, profile some sort of, give some sort of advice to the young ones out there. Now, looking at policies back home, and then looking at implementation in comparison with the caliber of people we have in government, especially the present government, take it from the Obasanjo regime up till the moment. We've always had very classic team. Now, can you match the performance indices with the kind of human resources deployed, in realizing the nation's dreams?
Well, look, at the end of the day, context. Context matters.
Okay.
Your reference point is very important. If the context is Singapore, a very tiny little place just beside Malaysia, 1950, a fishing port. Today, their airline is the best in the world, right? The best in the world. They are basically, they blow away all the indicators as far as OECD countries are Is that our reference point? You look at Malaysia. I happen to have lived in East Asia for 5 years, and I traveled these countries intensively.
Alright, that's the much we can take on this show, A Chat with a Professional. Today, I am sure you have been thrilled and inspired by this wonderful professional that we have featured today. As always, the younger ones, you know, we've designed this show to encourage you to aspire to be like, you know, such professionals that we feature. And to the glory of God, within the past 12 years, I do not think that any of the guests we featured on this show has been involved in any form of scandal. And that's why we go out to get the best, so that we do not get negative inspiration, you know, passed across to not just the young ones, but generality of Nigerians. Essentially, within the past 12 years, it's not been profitable for me as an individual or for Blue Rose Media as an organization to run this show. But our consolation comes from the fact that on a daily basis, people's lives are touched positively by what we do on A Chat with a Professional. And that's why we go around the world. Since they can't come home, we go looking for them. Be they Nigerians, be they foreigners, so long as they can add value to our national life as a people. And of course, as Africans, we will do that, and by the special grace of God, until I give up the ghost, I will keep doing this by the special grace of God to ensure that we have a better society and a Nigeria of everyone's dreams, of course, the good people that we are. Till next week when I come your way, I remain Martin Sobu saying stay blessed, and I'll see you again.
A chat with a professional. A chat with a professional. With Martin Sobu. A chat with a professional. A chat with a professional. With Martin Sobu. A chat with a professional will make you know more about the society.